in your life, just peel away more and more layers of bullshit. The more you can think about, do I really mean what I'm saying right now, or am I just saying this because I want this person to like me?
You're talking to a girl and you're like, oh, like at night you should not drink coffee because caffeine blocks this and blocks that and reverses this and reverses. No one likes that language.
Carmine Gallo said you should do it at least 10 times out loud. If
American reading level is around 5th grade.
your pitch, your pace, your clarity, your inflection, which is the up and down of your pitch, and then your physical expression and your facial expression. Those are the 7 basic speech settings. Every week, every time you put out a new video, as you know, you are sharpening your skills. You are becoming more articulate. You're becoming more comfortable. You're figuring out who the fuck you are. People, don't start your presentation with, hi, my name is Will and I'm blah, blah, blah. That's not a hook.
Today's guest is William Greenblatt. Will is a CEO and co-founder of Outloudspeaker School, where he coaches people to transform their speaking skills. He's a public speaking and communications coach, and he is also an author of a book that helps you transform your public speaking. His book, LinkedIn, where he provides free resources to educate people on how to level up their speaking game, and the link to schedule a session with Will to transform your public speaking will all be linked down below in the description. And now, my conversation with Will Greenblatt. Hi, Will. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Thank you for reaching out and inviting me. This is really fun. I it's my favorite thing to talk about and to ramble on about, but it's always nice to have somebody, instead of me creating content, just speaking into a camera. It's nice to have that person to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, I feel the same. The reason why I contact people like you is because I could have some learnings about my public speaking, and along the process, hopefully the people who are watching can learn themselves as well.
Totally.
Yeah, totally. So public speaking, big topic. A lot of people have to speak publicly in their professional lives, college students, corporate professionals. What are some of the tools and strategies that people and specifically I'm talking about college students, corporate professionals should use in order to deliver their presentation, their talk, or their story?
So if I can simplify it as much as possible to start, and then we'll get into it. I like to say your only job is to make your audience understand, make them care, and make them trust you. If you've done that, you've done the whole job. So it doesn't matter if you mess up a fact or a figure. It doesn't matter if you stumble over your words or you say or a few times. If they know what you're talking about, they understand. If they have some sort of emotional connection to it, either to you because you're passionate about it, or you're talking about something sufficiently sad or happy or exciting or scary, whatever the topic may be. And finally, that they believe you have some kind of credibility to be discussing this and to be giving them some sort of recommendation, advice, or just even telling your own story. So that's the understand, care, and trust. If you do that, all of the polish, the technical aspects, whether your PowerPoint works properly or not, doesn't really matter. You just have to hit the essence of it. So I like to focus on kind of the heart and soul of the presentation rather than the outside polish, if that makes sense.
Definitely. So what about the preparation? This could be for, let's say I can give you my example. When I was in undergrad, I used to have a lot of these presentations on research papers. And so in order to just prepare myself, I would have to give a lot of effort beforehand because research papers are really wordy. And so whenever you are giving a presentation that requires you to gather sources and read research articles, like what kind of preparation, what type of preparation, and the amount of time that you need to take that helps an individual give the presentation effectively?
That's a very good question. And so just to back up a bit, it's worth telling you about my background and how I do this because it informs the way I teach people. So I come from an acting background. I was an actor when I was 7 years old. I started working in film and TV because my parents and my older sister were actors. So I kind of fell into the business. And that's what I did my whole life. I didn't go to real university really. I went to theater school and I did a theater training as an actor. I ended up hating it and quitting. And then long story short, I kind of found this mixture of teaching and entrepreneurship. And I realized, oh, there's a business here. And I started this company Out Loud with my acting mentor because we thought, okay, if we teach acting techniques to business people, to college students, then they can really improve their presentation skills and their public speaking and communication skills. Now, funny you say science, research papers, because those were our first students as a company. We would work with the University of Toronto Science Department, and these students were actually pitching for research grants. So like $2 million they were asking for, like a lot of money on the line, high stakes. And of course, as you know well, the actual topic was really, really complex. As you said, very wordy. And the problem with that was they were getting so stuck in the content that they weren't thinking about the delivery, because they spent all their time in their head reading and writing and not enough time speaking out loud. So we call our company Outloudspeaker School, partially because one of the biggest things you can do for prep is read the fucking thing out loud as much as you can beforehand. Most people don't do that. They sit on their laptop and they go, okay, and then you expect to stand up in front of a room full of people and have a strong voice and it's not going to happen. You have to do it. You have to simulate it like you would if you're playing soccer or if you're playing violin. You have to actually play the song. You have to actually practice game situations. So you've got to speak out loud to practice the way you use your hands and your body and your voice. Carmine Gallo, who wrote Talk Like TED, really good book for people who like TED Talks and want to know sort of the philosophies behind them. Carmine Gallo said you should do it at least 10 times out loud if you want to be ready. Your TED presentation. Now, I would say that's a good rule of thumb. Do it 10 times out loud. What I like to also say is that you should be able to rehearse, but also edit at the same time. That's what doing it out loud gives you. So let's say you have your script, what you're going to say. If you say it out loud and you find yourself stumbling over one word or phrase, change it. If you can't say it properly, change it to something you can say properly. And the good thing about that is usually you might be trying to say like, there is a significant increase in the order of magnitude, and you're making it way more complicated. And you just said, this went up 78%. Cut it down, make it simple, make it clear. I know in the science world, they like to be very wordy and they like to sound very technical. And I'm sure there's an expectation from your audience that there's a certain amount of technical language, and that's fine. But where you can, you really should try to talk so that anyone can understand. No matter how many experts there are out there, if you can make difficult concepts, like complex concepts, simple, then that's what a great public speaker does. Richard Feynman, the great scientist, a lot of people think this is Albert Einstein's quote, but Richard Feynman was the one who said, try explaining it to a child. Try teaching it yourself as though to a child. If you can do that, then you truly understand your research paper or your topic. So nowadays I call it the grandparent rule. Like if you're giving a presentation, can your grandparent understand? And if they can't, make it more simple. So yeah, that's a big thing with the prep, is saying it out loud, changing it to what it sounds like out loud, and trying to write the way you talk, and vice versa. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yep. I consume Alex Hormozy a lot, and the recent book that he published and the associated presentation that he had to give for his premiere of the book, he said that he put a lot of effort in that presentation. I think he put like hundreds of hours of effort in just presenting in front of 500,000 people. I think it was a Zoom recording, the premiere. And so I think that really changed like my perspective on YouTubing. Like I just thought that, okay, YouTubing is like presenting in a way. And then if I'm not even like, when I used to make YouTube videos, I used to just hope for the best. And okay, I have this title, let's say How to Lose Fat. That's the title. And I'll just start the camera and start speaking. And I think in the beginning it's fine, but you don't really know which words to use unless you have like really prepared for it.
Yeah.
And from that from there you don't know which words to change. You don't know anything about your audience. Like you said, we need to change the words into simpler language. You cannot really do it if you don't have a script to it and you don't have any preparation. And so that's what I take from what you said. And then using simple words is a great way, because I took like a cultural competence, like a little seminar for
Hmm.
my workplace,
Yeah.
and American reading level is around fifth grade.
Right.
And I think that also kind of changed my perspective on like my delivery online, or end of my senior year of college, that I think I need to use like simpler words to get my point through. Not everyone will speak and understand research vocabulary all the
Yeah.
time, and it's just literally boring. Like, let's say you're on a date and like you're talking to a girl and you're like, oh, like at night you should not drink coffee because caffeine blocks this and blocks that and reverses this and reverses. No one likes that language.
Yeah.
Like the
Well, because
first time,
you feel like you're being lectured to, right?
yeah,
So if you're on a
exactly.
date and somebody's giving you this lecture, you're like, we're not in class. I want to vibe with you. I want to like go back and forth. I want to say my own thing. I want to hear your thing. We want to joke. So if you're saying, actually the neuroreceptors block the adenosine, whatever, then it just, you feel like you're in class, and we don't want to feel lectured to, but we do love to learn. That's the tricky thing. There's a phrase from marketing that they say people don't like being sold to, but they love to buy. I think the same is true with learning. People hate being taught, but they love to learn. So if you're lecturing at someone, or going, you should know this, people kind of go, fuck you, like, why are you treating me like I'm an idiot? But when you tell somebody something with enough mutual curiosity. I do this with my wife all the time. If I go, well, actually, blah, 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 she goes, shut up. But if I go, hey, I learned a really cool fact. You want to hear it? She goes, yeah. And then I tell her a fact and she's like, that's so cool. It's just the delivery, the way that I say it. I'm not saying I'm smarter than you and I know this. I'm just going, hey, isn't this a cool thing? And that's actually a great way also to approach very scientific or complex or even corporate presentations. Instead of going, here's this thing that I know and you don't, therefore I'm better than you in terms of your delivery style, you kind of go, here's this amazing cool thing. I learned about it and I just want to share it because it's so cool. It's so interesting and I can't wait to talk about it. That's infectious. People
Yeah.
sit there, go, oh my God, that is cool. Not, this guy has the secrets to the universe and I don't have them and therefore he's better than me. And I do want to just mention the Hormozy thing, because he's a great communicator. Like, first off, very good communicator. And he's very good at making things simple, which is fantastic. One thing that I personally don't like about his communication style is that he goes, I'm up here and you're down here. Let me help you bring you up to me. And that to me is, and it's not about successful, because obviously he's quite successful, but to me, that's not the way I want to communicate with my students as a teacher or as a coach. I want to go, here's this thing that I stumbled across. It's not my invention. I didn't make it up. I discovered it. It's nature's creation. And I just think it's super cool. If you think about science, you don't make up science, you discover science, correct?
Yep.
It's the same with music. Nobody actually really makes up music. It exists in nature, these frequencies and these volumes and these cadences of notes. The songwriter just kind of discovers them and uncovers notes that go well together. And so, I mean, obviously we have intellectual property and stuff, like you can't take somebody's song, but the songwriter I think of as just like a scientist who has discovered something beautiful in nature that existed, and they just kind of brought it to life. And that's what I always like to think of with entrepreneurship or with science or with art, is you are the uncoverer, you are the discoverer. And so if you can kind of keep it separate, not look how good I am, but look how amazing this thing I found is, then it's a cool shift, and you kind of get to share the coolness with your audience and go, appreciate it together rather than saying, here's how awesome I am. So I think that's really important. With Hormozy, he's in business, right? And a lot of people like to buy, that's the successful guy. And if I want to be successful, I need to listen to him because he's done it and he's got money and he's famous. And I get that. But I think, especially for science, corporate world, art, I personally like to see somebody who is more relatable to the audience. I like people who kind of are more vulnerable and show themselves in that way.
Yeah, I think personality plays like a lot of role in this. Um, the example that I can think of is like when I'm on camera, sometimes I cannot be humorous,
Mm,
but in person, I'm more willing to be more humorous with people.
yeah,
On camera, my humor just dies down, but I'm building it up through podcasting. And if the conversation is going nice and we're having a non-serious conversation, my kind of humor sparks. But the now this is where individual difference in personality comes in. And also, like, I heard this from Gary Vee, that whenever you do content creation, I see, for everyone who is watching, listening, I associate content creation to presentation inside a classroom.
for sure.
That's what I
Yeah,
associate to. So, like, whenever you are content creating or whenever you're public speaking, it's a great message that I learned from Gary Vee, is that you have to kind of be like a newspaper, where you're just like trying to like, look how cool this is. I want to share it to you.
right.
I
Yeah.
made a YouTube short. It was like a very short YouTube video about a story, and it got a lot of views, like more than any of my videos. It got like
Mm,
more than 400. And what I learned is like, I learned a cool story. I learned a true crime story, and I'm just kind of like share my perspective on it. Couldn't wait to just share that story online because it's
mm,
so cool.
yeah.
And I think I want to do that more. And so I think that whatever you said kind of backs up my learnings in the last week, in fact.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing, and I love when those dots are connected. For me, when I used to teach English, I would tell my students, "I want you to become like an English detective," which
Mhm.
means that I want you to like read an article and then notice, "Hey, that verb is the same as the verb we learned in class yesterday." And then you're on the subway and you're, in Canada or whatever, and then you see an advertisement on the subway and you go, oh, that's the same tense, that's the future perfect tense, we learned that in class the other day. Like, you're always connecting the dots instead of just learning language, like, okay, now we're studying verbs, now we're studying grammar, now we're studying vocabulary, and siloing it off. I want you to kind of look for the connecting threads, and that kind of big picture thread connecting mindset is also so good for public speaking. It's the same thing. It's like, you notice something when you're talking to your dog, the way your voice moves can also affect an audience of people. I say that all the time. Like, if you want your dog to stop something, do you go, no? Or do you go, no? What do? You do the one that is going to make them stop, where your voice goes downwards and it's strong and it's loud and it's authoritative, and your dog listens to you when you do it like that. But if you go, oh, no, 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 don't do that, the dog's not going to listen to you, right? So it's you can connect those threads from all different parts. And I love that you said that about taking this, from content creation and applying it to public speaking, because that's exactly right. Anytime you are delivering your message from your perspective to the public, even when you're talking to an individual, I sometimes say that even talking to one person can be considered public speaking, because
Mhm.
it's not you. You're not talking to yourself. You're talking to another human being. And that is inherently risky. If you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, when we used to live in tribes, if you stood up in front of your tribe and said something good, you might get a mate from that. You might get some friends. Somebody might share some food with you. Your status might go up in the tribe. That's a high reward situation. But if you said
Mhm.
something bad that people didn't like, or that they thought you were lying, or they thought you were acting not in the best interest of the tribe, they'd kill you. They'd throw you out of the cave, right? So that was literally, to stand up around the fire and say something was like life or death for our ancestors, right? And you and I were talking before we recorded, there's so much insight from the world of neuroscience and evolutionary biology, because that's how we evolved for most of our history.
Yeah.
So now when I think about when you turn on the camera and speak, your nervous system is still in caveman mode, going, I'm about to speak in front of my tribe. What if this goes badly? That would be disastrous. Now, of course, nowadays, if you and I have a shitty podcast right now, nothing bad's going to happen to us. Just YouTube won't push it in the algorithm. It's nothing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But that's not what our nervous system feels because of our evolution. Our sense of anxiety is strong. And that's where I think stage fright comes from, which is you're standing up in front of the stage. You know this feeling, right? You stand up to give a presentation in front of your class and there's like 7 people there and 3 of them are your friends, but all of a sudden you're shaking. You're like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why am I so scared? That's why. Is anytime you are drawing attention to yourself and speaking, sharing ideas, that's a terrifying concept because of the historical risk associated with it. I might get kicked out of the cave. They might kill me in my sleep. They might take all my food. They might like all that. So they're not going to share the saber-toothed tiger or the what is it called, woolly mammoth meat with me. I think about it like that for most things. The hunter-gatherer disconnect between how we used to live and how we live now. And so it makes sense that you can't be humorous when you speak on camera, because your body's going, don't make a joke. What if it offends somebody? You're going to die. It's a big deal.
Exactly. True. Yeah, some of the jokes that I hold back just because I'm afraid of, like, what if this person doesn't like it, that person? But then I think, I don't have anything to lose. I'm nowhere close to a successful podcast. And that thought just calms me down, because I sometimes have nothing to lose and I can be free-flowing and humorous. So that perspective and thought process helps me out in certain situations.
I think it's great. Yeah. Nobody cares. That's what I tell myself all the time. Nobody cares. It's a good problem to have. If people care about your jokes, you're in a good position.
Okay. Keep that in mind, definitely.
Yeah.
Taking 2 steps back, when we talk about the 3 tools, could you remind us the three tools? Understand. The second one was
make them understand, make them care, and make them trust you. Yeah.
So we touched a lot on understand. Change of words, simple language, develop curiosity, louder. Yeah, slower. So what about the tone?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the tone now. Like, what is the role of tone? Because when I looked at my previous YouTube videos, and when I even, like, I can share you my high school experience, like when we were talking about stage fright, my first presentation in high school, and it was a speech class. It's like trauma to me to thinking about it, because it's like in my brain, because it was so frightening to stand in front of people who I don't know. I'm in private school. First time speaking in front of people that I don't know. It's not my tribe yet. And I'm shaking. I deliver my speech. I sit down, and I shiver. That's my normal response. That has been my normal response up to college. 4 years, I have had tremendous stage fright.
Yeah.
And when you have stage fright, your amygdala activity is high as hell. It wants to, like, detach from your brain, and it just doesn't want to be inside your brain. And so when you have that feeling, you have no control over your tone. You have no awareness over your tone. So what are your strategies on combating the emotions and controlling the tone while you are frightened?
So I'm really glad that you asked the question that way, by setting it up with the stage fright first, because if the question is just how do you control your tone, well, that's like, I have a whole framework for that we can go into in a sec. But the first is the stage fright. Even as you were telling me that story, I noticed my breath starting to catch, and I noticed me going, I had to breathe and go, Fuck, because I know that feeling so well. I relate to it so well. I used to have really bad social anxiety and stage fright. My social anxiety is a lot better now as I've gotten older, and as I do this work, I've found a way to relate to people where I'm not so focused on if I'm cool enough, if I seem smart enough or funny enough or whatever. So it's better. My social anxiety is better. I still have it, of course,
Yeah.
but my stage fright is still there as well. And I have a visceral physical reaction to even hearing your story, which is, oh fuck, I know what that feeling is like. All eyes are on you and you can't breathe and your palms are sweating and you can barely, catch your breath. Your mind is racing, but at the same time you can't focus on anything. And it's an awful, awful feeling. It really does feel like a horrible thing. And your body doesn't really know what's going on. It doesn't understand, oh, we're safe here, we're fine. So your body thinks we're under attack. One of the best things I ever saw was, do you know Vox Netflix show? I think it's called Explained.
Yep.
They talked about anxiety. Did you watch that episode with the warthog? And
No.
it was really good. They showed a cartoon of, so when a warthog is, eating grass or whatever, I don't know what they eat, but when they're drinking water or something and they hear a lion behind them in the bushes,
Mhm.
they showed all of the physiological responses. So like, the brain shuts down a certain hormone that allows you to think clearly, and it pushes all the blood into your fast twitch muscles, and you don't breathe as deep because you have to hyperventilate to get enough oxygen to run fast. And the adrenaline and the cortisol spike and the oxytocin and the serotonin drop because those are like happy, calm hormones. And it just showed the whole process. So basically it was like, all the resources get diverted to getting the fuck out of there, to running away and fight or flight, right? And so all the resources that normally go into being calm and focused and relaxed, those shut off to get us to safety. So that's the big problem, is when we have stage fright, we think we're under threat and we do not think clearly. We do not appear calm. We do not sound warm and calm and approachable. We sound nervous. And the problem with a nervous speaker is not people go, ha ha, is they just go, oh no, this person's nervous. And subconsciously, they're more focused on your nervousness, maybe, if it's really obvious, although usually it's not, than they are about your content. So the first step is you have to get the emotions regulated. Emotional regulation is like the number one. I don't mean number one as the most important, but kind of is, because it's the first thing you have to tackle. If your emotions are not regulated, you will never be able to be a true master of public speaking because you're never in control. And so obviously you don't want to be too in control because you want it to be loose and spontaneous, but you want to have your emotions under control when you're on stage, or at least be able to channel them healthily and effectively. The most simple technique, breathing. Deep belly breathing in and out. So if you want, we can do it right now, and anybody watching can do this. So put a hand on your chest, just under your collarbone, and put another hand on your belly button, even as we're sitting here. And take a deep breath in and out. So which hand is moving more for you when you breathe? The top hand or the bottom hand?
Bottom.
Good. That's what we want when we're practicing the belly breathing, because we want the belly to go out. Because when the belly goes out, when the abdomen extends, the diaphragm, which is under the lungs, that is allowed to go down. And as you probably know better than me as a science student, the biggest part of the lungs is at the bottom. So that can fill in the most. When we breathe deeply, everybody goes like this. But the big part of the lungs is not at the top, it's at the bottom. We want to breathe into the belly. And that also tells the whole body, it's okay, you can relax. Because when you breathe into the belly, we normally only do that when we're safe, when there's no predators, when there's no threats from other people, when there's enough food, when it's a nice sunny day and everything's fine, we breathe into our belly. So by breathing into your belly on purpose, you can reverse engineer the feeling of feeling safe and feeling calm. The second part to that is just sending yourself those messages with your thoughts. I am safe. I am calm. I'm good. This is going to go well. People out there are rooting for me. I know my stuff. I've rehearsed it many times. I deserve to be speaking because I worked hard at this presentation. Whatever positive messages you would tell your friend, I always say you give best friend advice. So if your friend was about to fall apart before a presentation, he calls you, he's like, Harsh, I'm gonna fuck it up. I know I'm stupid. I don't deserve to be here. I don't belong, blah, blah, blah. You'd give him good advice, right? What would you tell your friend in that scenario?
Calm down, breathe.
Yeah.
Your presentation will be fine.
Yeah.
You will do good.
Tell yourself.
Yeah,
Tell
definitely.
yourself the same thing. That's really all it is like if you learn to talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend, tell yourself, I'm calm, I'm safe, you've got this, you're good, it's all going to be fine. Those messages, even saying them out loud, I know people find that to be a bit douchey sometimes. Like if you say, like affirmations or something, some people think that's
Yeah.
kind of bullshit, but I think it actually works. And I'm not a new agey person in general. I kind of like science-based facts. I'm pretty sure that there's decent science behind the neurology of affirmations, right?
Oh,
Like by
definitely.
breathing and yeah.
Oh, I was
So I
just
would
gonna
say,
add.
yeah.
I was just gonna add, like, even though affirmations don't work when everything is going fine with you, but what about the situation where nothing's going fine with you? What about you are in a situation where a lion is chasing you? You Science is not right, but you need, like, we have this mental capability of calming ourselves down through positive affirmation. So I think everything is in context. So when people say affirmations don't work, yes, in certain scenarios they probably won't work.
Hmm.
Like, let's say you're going to the gym and your max bench is like 245. You're not going to lift 260.
Yeah.
Even if you tell yourself, "Oh, I'm going to lift this," like, I ate a lot of protein and carbs before
Yeah.
this, like,
Yeah.
I got this. No, you can't. There's no way you're going to lift it.
Yeah. It's not
But
physically possible.
if you are going to present, like, let's say you are going to present on TED Talk or something, it's a big stage, it's a big opportunity for you. You only have to give yourself that. The only thing you can do is give yourself positive affirmations.
Yeah.
So
Well, because yeah, what's the the other thing is like, what's the alternative? You mentioned earlier, when you used to post on YouTube, you would just click record and then hope for the best. That's what people do on stage. It's so sad because they're, people like me, we have, and actors in general, we have methods to make you feel prepared and to help warm you up before you go on stage and to help feel calm on stage. And it just sucks because most people don't know this information. They don't know this education because they're not actors or they're not professional performers. Singers also get this kind of training as well. And for anyone listening who really wants to improve their public speaking, singing training, vocal training is great work as well. So there's some great YouTube people out there. What's his name? Eric Arsenault is a great guy. We can maybe link in the show notes.
yes.
He's a great vocal coach and just warm-ups to have a stronger, more musical voice. That's actually really good for public speaking, to have a musical voice. The more rich and melodic and, and powerful and sustained your voice is, you just present better, right? You hear somebody with a good voice and you're like, I want to listen to that,
What's the last name of that person, Eric?
Arsenault, Arceneaux. Great vocal coach. He's been doing YouTube for years and years, and he's not big and flashy, but he's got a few 100,000 subscribers, and he just kind of is always doing the work, always putting out good stuff, easy content to follow along to. He's got vocal warm ups that I just press play and I just follow him. Whatever he's saying, I just do it, and I want to develop some content where I do that for public speaking exercises as well, but haven't gotten around to it yet. But it's vocal work is really, really important.
So what about scripts? Like you said, actors usually have to read a script. What's your take on preparing a script for your presentations, your talks? What's the role of scripts?
A script is really important, not just for a presentation. And in fact, I'm mixed on whether you should or should not have one for a presentation. A script is important for the preparation of the presentation. What I mean by that is, in acting, we do something called text work, where you take your script and you mark certain words that are important for you to emphasize, or you really think about certain words and phrases that you have to say that you find are important in this sentence. But only by having the written word down on a page can you really look at it and do that text work. And this is the work that I give my clients. I'll say to them, okay, whether you write it out in Microsoft Word, whether you type it out and print it out, or whether you just write little bullet points in your Microsoft PowerPoint presenter notes, I don't care. But you need some text on the paper to do this work. So that's what I think about scripts is I don't care if you improv. I don't care if you feel more comfortable. I like to say there are two types of people, improvisers and memorizers. Improvisers feel much better when they don't have a script. Memorizers feel much better when they do. But in general, everybody needs the script to do the text work, which is for preparation and just becoming a better speaker. This is what we all did at theater school. This is what we do, when we get a script for an audition as actors. You take the words on the page and you drill down on them, and you do them in different ways with different vocal tones and different inflections. So to get back to the question about vocal tone, how do we know what is a good tone of voice or a bad tone of voice? How do we know that we're doing it right or wrong? There is no way to say right or wrong because it depends on the objective, what you want, and it depends on the situation. Whatever you want to do, that's the tone you should use. What I mean by that is, let's say you're saying something to an audience and you want them to be impressed, excited. Should you use a really quiet tone of voice and speak slowly? Say, this is really, really exciting. I can't wait to share this with you. Or is that weird? Should you say, this is really exciting. I really want to share this with you, right? There's sort of a right or a wrong way for that moment, right? So we have something that I call the speech settings. And these are 7 technical aspects of your speech that you can change to change the tone and the body language at any given time. Now, I'm not sure if it's possible to edit in an image here, but if you want, I'll share the image so you can do that.
Definitely.
But basically, it looks like a DJ's mixing board or an audio engineer's, the sliders that they use to adjust on the mixing board. And you can think of it as your volume, your pitch, your pace, your clarity, your inflection, which is the up and down of your pitch, and then your physical expression and your facial expression. Those are the 7 basic speech settings. And all of them have a maximum of 10 and a minimum of 0. And so what I start to do with all my students is I have them play around with them. So Harsh, where would you say, if you're judging your own YouTube videos, where would you say your pace generally sits? If 10 is the fastest you can possibly talk and 0 is like super slow motion, where would you say out of 10 your pace generally sits?
Previous videos, I would say 5 to 6.
5. Okay, 5 or 6. So a little on the fast end, but kind of right in the middle, you'd say.
Yeah.
Okay. So then here's what I would do. I would say, do you think it would serve you in general to speak faster or to speak slower? What do you think is more in line with your objectives?
It depends on the video. If it's like a story that I'm trying to say, like let's say my story would be, this is what I did to stop binge eating. And
Yeah.
there's kind of like an emotional side to it, social
Yes.
anxiety side to it. And there's a lot of emotions that I want to give out. Then then it will be slow.
Exactly. Yes.
And interestingly, I did not think about this like 6 months ago or even a year ago when I started YouTube. So 1 year ago I started YouTube. Okay, I did not think about like tone, pitch, all these 7
Speech
components
settings.
of tone. So, and then again, getting back to your question, if it was like a science-based video, I would have a little bit faster pace, like let's say 7, maybe 7, 8.
Sure.
But what I found out is like whenever you make shorts or whenever you make reels, I think it serves you really well if you pace it up.
Yeah.
Like
For
you
sure.
want to give the information bang, bang, bang. Like,
Nobody has any attention span.
No. And I'm just learning so many things in the past month because I'm just interested in all this, the art of speaking and stuff. So I'm realizing that different types of videos and topics of videos really influence how I speak or will influence how I speak in the future.
Yeah.
In podcasting, I feel like I'm just my natural self. So it would be around like 5. I'm not really sure.
So here's another thing to think about. Once you kind of establish your baseline, then you want to start to think about how it can vary.
Mhm.
So, like a DJ with the sliders, it should never stay the same for the whole song. Do you know much about music, musical terminology? Do you ever study music or?
No.
Okay, so there's a concept in music called dynamics, which means getting louder and getting softer. In music, if the song is loud the whole song, you're never going to listen to it because it's going to get annoying and repetitive. Like it has to get louder and then softer. It has the drums have to get really hard and then they have to cut out. No matter what the genre is, there's always dynamics. Classical, jazz, blues. That's what keeps the ear listening is change, variety. So that's really important. But we don't want to just change the pace for no reason. It needs to be connected to the words. And as you said, if it's an emotional thing you're saying, you want to slow down to let people feel the emotions. But what if it's a 3-minute video all about your emotions? You can't go slow for the whole time because people will start to get very, very bored and annoyed.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you give them that, it's just be like, okay, change it. We don't even know we want that, but we want the change. We want the variety. So when you are thinking about varying your speech settings, just think about what does this moment need? If I'm saying, I'm really excited to be here, you can say that fast and loud and your pitch can go up. But then if you say, now let's get serious for a second, the pace can go down. You can not move so much. Your facial expression can start to get focused, right? And then you want to release the tension a little bit and go, okay, but now that we've talked about that, let's move on to something else. You get faster. You feel like you can hear all the changes, right, in my voice, the way I'm kind of even doing it right now. That's what a really good public speaker starts to do effortlessly. And if you watch the best comedians, they do this. They never have the same speech settings for too long because they know that the build-up and the release of the punchline and the story and the different characters, they all need different pitches and paces and inflections and clarities. And the best stand-up comedians will effortlessly, or it seems effortless, but they work on this stuff. They make it seem effortless, but they switch and they get louder and softer and slower. So with the speech settings, what's really important is when you play around with them, choose what is important for this moment. And the way you ask that question is, how do I want the audience to feel? Do I want them to be excited? Do I want them to be scared of this? Do I want them to be happy? Do I want them to be sad? Do I want them to, whatever that is, how do you want them to feel? Help them feel that way with the delivery, right? And it's not about manipulation. It's just about what I call emotional connection. You have to feel that way. So if you're telling a story about, if you don't mind, we can talk about the binge eating story, right? So
Definitely.
So let's talk about some of the emotions associated with that, if you're comfortable with that. Like when you wanted to stop, let's say, was there a rock bottom moment when you were like, I need to make a change.
Yeah, so when I was 15, I was poorly judged for how I looked, and obviously, if you're bigger, then your eating habits would be judged. And
Yeah.
so I was struggling at binging at that time. I would just like have no conscious control of anything. Like
Mm.
I was try to lose weight, or try to lose weight, meaning I would attempt to lose weight. But when I would cut back on I learned when I would cut back on the foods that I liked, I would just relapse on like having
Yeah.
a high binge night or a high
Right.
binge weekend, even if it's like a mini vacation.
Yeah.
And so that is how I realized, okay, well, this is not the life that I want to live. And then it just obviously it was a long time. Like this could be a long story, but that's how I
Sure.
started.
But it's really interesting. First of all, I just want to call attention to what's happening right now. Anybody watching this their mood will have changed. Their physiology will have changed.
Hmm.
All of a sudden they will be focusing in more. They will be listening more. Time will seem to be going a bit more slowly
Hmm.
because they are hearing something real and vulnerable and difficult and emotional. And if they have any kind of empathy, which most people do, they will be feeling for you, as I am. Because whether or not we've been through it, we've been through our own version of these things. For me, I've been addicted to cigarettes, been addicted to other drugs. I've definitely abused and binged alcohol in ways that are really unhealthy for me. And I've understood that I want to stop, but I couldn't. And so I know what that feeling is like. And so even whether we do or not, most people can still imagine. They can imagine the feelings of being out of control and of wanting to do something better for your life, but not being able to, and being like, oh, what's wrong with me? I wanted to do this and I did it again, all those feelings of shame. And so there's that. First of all, this is a beautiful story, and I really thank you for sharing it, because it's not easy to do this. And it's very important, I think, because it lets other people feel that they're not alone, and that other people are struggling, right? So it's a beautiful thing you're doing for your audience. And the other thing is, you were really naturally changing the variety of your pitch there. And if you go back and watch this, you'll see there were moments when you were going, yeah, so I was realizing that it was like this. And it's a long story, I can't, just the way you change your tone there shows me, oh, it's tiring. This was an exhausting subject for me. And like, it was a lot. Just the way you changed your voice there showed me that, hey, he went through a lot. It's a big story. That's the kind of thing too that you can also think of as like, you don't have to necessarily try to change your tone. If you truly connect your heart to what you're saying, it'll happen a bit more naturally, because you're really tapping into your own emotions, and you don't have to fake that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What about when we present, or when we talk about like hard facts and numbers and facts? How should our tones change, and what's our delivery like in that sense? Because
Again,
story
it
is
depends.
probably easier, right?
Yes,
To connect
100%.
your emotions and tone.
100%. But again, it's how do you want them to feel about the fact?
Right.
Is it a good fact or is it a bad fact?
Hmm.
If you said our company made $20 million last year, good fact. I mean, depends. Maybe in your industry that's bad, but usually that's a good number. But if you said, let's say your company made $20 million last year, but it costs $60 million to run your business, that's a bad year. So that's a bad fact, right? You might be the CEO of the company telling everybody that, guys, we're fucked. Like it depends what you want with the fact. So let's say you're presenting science, a research paper that you've been working on, and you're presenting a fact about the findings. Does this fact suggest that all our months of research mean we're onto something exciting? Or does it say that actually our hypothesis was kind of wrong and there's nothing there and it was a waste of time? So that it depends on what the fact means emotionally. And you can always bring it back to what I call the big 5 human concerns. I just made this up, but it does seem to work. And I've read some other things that kind of support this in a way. When I say the big 5 human concerns, I'll explain it in a second, but I call them time, money, health, relationships, and emotional well-being. Now, in the book Hardwiring Happiness, the author, can't remember his name now, great book, again, neuroscience stuff, but he basically talks about that human beings need safety, they need connection with their tribe, and they need a sense of happiness. Those are the 3 main drives, right? Time and money are just kind of proxies for those things. If you have enough time, then you can, dedicate it to being happy sometimes. And if you have enough money, then that can buy you safety, right? It can buy you a house, it can buy you food, that. So basically, that's why I call them the big 5, because those are the types of things that people actually really care about. Nobody really cares about a scientific reaction between 2 things unless it means something for them. You know what I mean? Like maybe you do because you're the researcher, but somebody else listening, why should they care about the specific scientific reaction? Can it be used to create a life-saving medicine? Could it be used to create a pharmaceutical product that can stop depression? Could it, could this be used to be able to like make the air cleaner for our plant? Is there a real life impact of this finding? And so when you go back to those first principles of what people truly care about, then you start to know how to emphasize facts and figures, because you just think, is this a good fact? Is this a bad fact? How is it good? How is it bad? And then you use your tone to convey that story. So Yeah, I don't know if you have any specific examples recently, but that's how I tell my tech clients how to do it. If they're giving me a fact about tech, well, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for regular human beings, right?
Yeah, I use a lot of numbers when I'm trying to evoke like a curiosity or emotion. Emotion in terms of, let's say, oh, curiosity is one, but also like just curiosity in terms of learning a good fact. And I do this with I've started doing this with my reels and short form videos, where I would start my video with a number. Let's say 99% of people in their 30s and 40s will uh, have slow metabolisms, or no, 99% of people in their 30s and 40s will gain lots of weight.
Right. Is that good or bad?
That's a very bad.
Yeah, right. So when you think about it in the reel,
Yeah,
are you delivering it totally neutral in your voice and your face and your body, or are you delivering it with some kind of urgency,
yeah,
some kind of like, hey, pay attention, this is important?
yeah.
Like, how did you do it when you did the reel?
I was like, 99% of people gain
Yeah,
lots of weight.
right. Then that's good. That's fine, right? Like that the reels are for that kind of like really super energetic sort of thing because, we're grabbing attention. But that's the right tone, which is like, hey, this is this is bad. This is
Yeah,
important. This is not only bad for your physical health, but it's bad for your mental well-being as well. If you don't feel good in your body and if you don't feel healthy, you won't be having a good time mentally either, right? So, I think that's the really important key to think about is going, what is the emotional impact of this fact? And how can I deliver it with, like, we tend to like people who are emotionally connected to what they're
mm,
saying. People who seem like robots, like, Mark Zuckerberg gets this criticism all the time. People listen to him speak, and he doesn't seem like he gives a shit about humans because of the way he talks. What's it called? Sam Altman from OpenAI. He's the same way. He seems like a robot. So we feel creeped out by these people, and we don't feel good about them. Then when you talk to a friend and you say, "Hey, I'm really suffering right now," or "I'm really having a hard time," and they go, "Oh shit, like what's going on?" and their face changes and their tone changes and they're there with you, that feels good, right? You feel seen by your friend. You feel that that friend has the emotional ability to connect with you. And the same goes for being a public speaker. If you talk about something and you show the right amount and the right type of emotion for the sort of thing you're talking about, people will naturally care about what you're saying and trust you. We go back to those: make them understand, make them care, make them trust you. If you hit the right emotional note, people will trust you so much more because you seem like a real, genuine person who is emotionally intelligent and connected to what they're talking about.
we're kind of like touching the last 2 points a little bit. When we talk about care, what are some of the things that we need to do in our delivery that evokes an audience say, "Oh, this person cares about me," because at the end of the day,
Uh,
audience really uh, wants things that ultimately impact them, and they
yeah,
don't. It's the dot. It's like a dark thought that like the person who is delivering, it's not a. They don't benefit anything from that when you're giving a talk or anything, but the audience is a group of people that really benefits from the talk. So what when you talk about care, what's that?
so really interesting point, and it's especially important in business, but I think it's important everywhere. Your value is not your skills, your charm, your charisma. I mean, all these things will help, but it's your value you deliver for others.
Yeah.
So if you're an asshole and if you are unpleasant to be around, but you make money for a client, they might just keep working with you because you make the money, and they go, "Oh, I don't really want to talk to him, but he's making us money, so we'll stick with him," or whatever. But when you're thinking about it from a public speaking perspective, part of your value is in not just your being an entertaining speaker, which is valuable because if you're got a great subject matter but you're boring, then they don't hear it anyways. So you have to be a good, clear, exciting, passionate communicator just to keep people's attention. Once you got their attention, now it's like, well, am I framing this in the way that it makes it valuable for them. And that takes some thought. So again, if you're presenting a scientific finding, who cares and why? Why should I care if I'm listening to you? Why do I give a shit? That's your job to figure out, not my job as the audience member. If you're making me work to figure out why I should care, you've lost me already, right? Do you ever study UX design in your business, like a landing page, how to create a user experience on a website? It's something you get into more like if you get into tech or into design. It's about creating the user experience. So when you go to a really good website, it feels so easy to navigate, right? And when you go to a bad website, you're like, oh, this is crap. I don't even know where to go. So that's UX basically.
Okay.
Good UX needs no work on your part to find exactly where you want to go. You're like, oh, that looks like a cool product. And then it says click here and your eye goes right there and you click there and then it takes you to exactly where you want to go. And you go, oh, I wish I could buy one. And then it goes buy now. And you go, good. Oh, I wish I could just click and then I could buy it. Oh, I can do that, right? That's good UX. It just takes you on this seamless path where you don't have to do anything. It's like being on a boat ride. You're just floating down the river. That's what a good speaker should do for their audience, is you've put so much effort into your story and your narrative and the way you're speaking that you're just pulling them effortlessly. They don't have to work at all. You're just pulling them towards the conclusion that you've found so effortlessly because of the way you've from the beginning, the hook, and you'll know this from reels and stuff, the very first thing you say should hook them into it. And the first thing they hear should be like, wow, I want to listen to this. That's why I always tell people, don't start your presentation with, hi, my name is Will and I'm blah, blah, blah. That's not a hook.
They don't care about
That's
it.
an introduction.
Yeah.
Start with a hook. So what I have my clients do is that when they stand up for a presentation, if they are going to say, hi, my name is Will and I'm the CEO of Outloudspeaker School, we help entrepreneurs, blah, blah, blah. Last year, I noticed that blah, blah, blah. I just have them flip it. And I go, okay, stand up there. And when they introduce you, you stand up and you look at the audience, you go, last year, I noticed this. Blah, 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 blah. Hi, my name is Will Greenblatt. So you start with the story. You start with the hook. So from that first moment, when you start with the story usually should talk about a problem, because you want to start with a problem. If there's no problem, it's like, why are we listening, right? Every presentation, I believe, pretty much should start with some kind of a problem. And if not a problem, then an opportunity. A missed opportunity, which is kind of like a problem. And from there, it should be so well structured and so well spoken that it just takes you on a little boat ride. Whereas the audience, you don't have to do any work. You're just watching and going, I get it. Oh, wow, that's cool. Oh, wow, that's sad. Oh, wow, that's amazing. And you're just, as the audience, you're just experiencing that, but you're not going, what did he just say? Oh, I didn't get that part. Okay, okay, I get it now. What did it, I missed that word. You don't want that, because that is like being on a shitty website. You're going to leave, right? You're going to bounce from the website. We hear presentations like that all the time, right? You stop, you check your phone, you go, Instagram, whatever. That is the unfortunate reality we live in, where most people suck at giving presentations because they've never been taught how. But if you put a bit of effort into it, so making them care is part of that, just the effort. Literally making an effort to be understood and to be passionate will put you ahead of already like 80% of presentations, just by putting in a bit of effort. Because most people stand up there and go, okay, I'm going to talk and I can't wait to sit down because I hate this and this is awful and everybody's looking at me. Let me get through my presentation as fast as I can. Okay, thank you. And then they leave. It sucks. It's too bad, and the audience doesn't like it. The presenter doesn't like it. So that's what I'm kind of here. That's my whole thing, is like, how do we not do that? How do we actually make it interesting and make people care? And then the second part to that is, what is the story? And I mentioned you start with a story, you start with a problem. I like to teach a kind of condensed version of story structure, which I call the problem solution prize framework.
Okay.
Every presentation can kind of fall into this. There is some problem. Ideally, it's a problem that your audience has, or people that the audience care about has. Then your solution is your unique perspective, your way of tackling it, whether that's a recommendation that you have for them, whether that is a product or service you have for them, whether that is a charity that you're raising money for that is going to solve this problem. Whatever that is, that's your solution and you're the person delivering it. The prize is where most people miss out on, which is, how does the world get better once your solution is adopted? And that's kind of like a future story. It hasn't happened yet. So you have to paint the picture for the audience. For you, Harsh, let's say you're pitching this podcast to somebody. How do you normally pitch the podcast if you approach someone? Like when you approach me, what do you say to get people to come on?
First of all, I usually thank them for their efforts in content creation because I can feel the same, how much effort and endless amount of time that's put into content creation. I think it's a lot of work. And so I usually thank them. And the way I first give them a follow, obviously, because if I want them on my podcast, like I do go through like a few of their posts, and I kind of compliment one of their posts. That's my way. And then I say, okay, well, my audience is really young. I have this podcast. I think you would be a great fit to my mission of health science and self improvement because that's what I want to focus on. I don't want to niche down a lot because I'm not that kind of person. Like I have a lot of interest and I don't want to like just hone in on a particular person or not a person but a particular topic and I just stick to it because like everything is connected in some way.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's how I do it.
But you have an audience, as you said, and they're of a certain demographic. So 18 to 24, let's say, mostly college students, probably more in STEM than in arts, but maybe not. But in general, sort of like, young people going through school, they want to achieve something in life, and they believe that self-improvement and knowledge and understanding is a way to do that, right?
Yep.
They're not content to just be like, I'm just going to, watch TV on the weekends and not read anything, not listen, I just want to like relax when I'm done work. That's not your people, right? Your people are self-improvers, learners, and readers. So that's a niche right there, really. I mean, that you can just say that, self-improvers between 18 to 24. So what you explained to me about the way you pitched the podcast was really great. You started, first of all, by establishing trust and establishing a relationship. First of all, you started by following. That immediately creates a good feeling in the person that you're going after. Hey, this guy followed me. This guy took a time. Hey, he liked some of my posts. And even though it's a tactic, I mean, kind of, right? I mean, but it still creates that feeling. That person goes, oh, this person took some time and they reached out. That's what made me listen to your DM, because I was like, this guy's following me. He liked my post. That's great. What a nice guy, kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. The next is that personal note. Thank you for creating the content that you do and creating more rapport and more trust and more likability between us, which is you do this thing, I do this thing. We're the same. Then you say, I have this audience. That is the opportunity, right? Or the problem. The problem is there's this untapped audience that you're not tapping into. And you don't have to be explicit about it, especially because you haven't really built the relationship. So if you come at me and be like, hey, Will, you're leaving money on the table by not appearing on my podcast, it might be like, oh, okay. But you know what I mean? So you have a more gentle way of approaching the problem, which is just, hey, there's this audience over here that you haven't reached yet. Why don't you come on? So then so that's the problem. Untapped audience of 18 to 24-year-old self-improvers that the Patel perspective has. The solution is come on the podcast. Come on the podcast, and then you give some details. We'll do it over Zoom, nice and easy, kind of handling any objections they might have. It's going to be super easy. We'll do it on Riverside. And then you'll get more follows. We'll have some content that we can chop up and that you can post on your social media, which will help you, blah, blah, blah. And then the prize is, it'll be a really, really great conversation, and this will help you grow your business. So that's the sort of problem, solution, prizes. Problem is untapped market. Solution is come on the podcast. Prize is grow your business. And usually with the prize, we always want to think, what does the other person deeply want? Not what do they kind of want? What do they really want? And for entrepreneurs, it's usually they want to grow their business. For people trying to get healthy, is they want to live longer and feel better. Right. For people on social media, they want to feel connected and socially validated. I mean, we can all admit that that's not what social media does. It's the exact opposite, but that's what they want. That's why they join. So that's it. That's the problem, solution, prize. So if you have a science presentation, the problem should be something like, the reason we're doing this research is there's too much pollution in North America. That could be the problem. We thought that if we looked at the specific compound and we burned it at the right temperature, blah, 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 maybe it would deal with the molecules or whatever. I'm not a scientist, clearly. So what we did is, oh, excuse me. It's my wife calling. What we did is we did this experiment and that experiment and whatever. More research is needed. So give us some money, once we solve this problem, that will go a long way to curbing the pollution and making a healthier environment for our kids to live in. So that's that problem solution prize structure. And it can really be applied anywhere. It's, you got to make people understand, why should I care at first, which is, what's the problem and who has it? If I don't have the problem, or nobody I care about has the problem, I probably won't pay attention as closely. So what's the problem? Who has it? What's the solution? And what are some of the benefits and some of the objections that you can answer? And then what's the prize? How does the world look better when the solution is adopted? So that's really how you make people care at a deep level, as you tell that story.
Powerful tip. The price tip is the tip that I have never heard of. And now I'm glad I learned about that, because I could add that to my work, and hopefully future content creators and current people who work in college, corporate world, and even when I see myself going into grad school, I will have to give presentations. And when I think about my undergrad presentations, I really regret that I didn't use like hooks, and my tone. I didn't have a script, even if it was a bullet script. Like those things are like, could be like, just they could just enhance your presentation, and you
Totally.
never know who's watching. You never know who you can make friends with, network with at any time, anywhere you are.
Anytime you're talking about yourself, your business, your work, your area of expertise, or asking somebody about theirs, that is such a beautiful thing, because people who are excited about what they're doing in life are fun to be around, right? When you meet somebody who's really excited about their job, they're really fun. If you're excited about your job, if you hate your job, you want to meet somebody else who hates their job, you can bitch about your job together, right?
Yeah.
You can go to the bar and you can be like, oh, my fucking boss. And you go, yeah, I know. But if you like what you're doing, you meet somebody else who likes what they're doing, then you have a great conversation. I mean, that's what all these podcasts are about, is you meet other people who are interesting and interested in what they do. And it's so much fun. And you find the connective tissue between your disciplines. And it's just a beautiful, exciting conversation. And what you're saying about, there's always an opportunity. You never know who's watching. You never know who's you're going to impact. The other thing is, start developing these skills now before you need them. Because when you need them, it's too late. You can't cram skill development. You can't do 20 hours of public speaking training in one night and expect to be ready for a presentation. However, if you do half an hour every day for 40 days, you're going to be amazing.
Definitely.
So start now, whether that's YouTube content creation. One thing I like about YouTube, my version is LinkedIn. I do LinkedIn videos and stuff, but I want to get more into YouTube as well, because it is like presenting. Content creation on video is getting your own thoughts down, feeling confident when the camera turns on, being able to put your ideas out there, being able to put something out there that doesn't feel perfect. Every week, every time you put out a new video, as you know, you are sharpening your skills. You're becoming more articulate. You're becoming more comfortable. You're figuring out who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. You are, by talking to other people, you figure out who you are. And you're doing this now. You're 23. That's an amazing thing that you've started. A really beautiful thing that you started, because you're getting your thoughts in order. You're figuring out what's going on. I'm still doing that. I'm 36. I'm still trying to figure out who the fuck I am, as we all are, right? I mean, I know more than I did when I was 23, but I don't know as much as I'll know when I'm 47. And that's the beauty of life, is you just keep discovering more about yourself and others. And you feel happier when you do that. You feel more centered and aligned and excited about life when you know what you are and who you are, and that provides your direction. And so I'm very impressed with what you're doing, and I just want to tell you to keep going and keep
Thank you.
having that impact.
Thank you. I really appreciate your comment on that. I just hope to keep this going. I've gotten that a lot from other guests, that keep this going because I think it's
Yeah.
working out well, not
Yeah.
only for me but also for the audience, because I feel like these are very important topics for self improvers and also college students and people who don't know what to do with their lives at an early age, and they want to really like leverage their age to kind of
Yeah.
improve their life when they can.
That's the best. I wish I'd started this shit when I was 18. I wish I'd started caring about myself and loving myself enough to
Hmm.
say, don't spend so much time drinking alcohol and doing drugs and, chasing girls and partying. Spend some of that time. Obviously, everybody's young and wants to have fun and experiment and stuff, but spend like 1/8 of the time that you do socially saying dumb shit with your friends and getting fucked up. Spend some of that time trying to improve yourself. And I slowly started that around age like 22. I really started going, okay, I'm going to read some stuff, and I started traveling after school, and that really helped me. That helped me with my confidence. That helped me with my sense of independence and stuff. But, as a young person, if you're listening to this, you doing this now, listening to podcasts like this and reading stuff like this and whatever it is that you're doing and finding a project to work on and a career, that's an amazing thing. You do have to have fun. You do have to make sure you rest and you build relationships and connections, because that's important in life. But you also really want to develop yourself and develop your skills, because you need all of it to be happy. Because I've had good social life and I've had good career, but if I don't have both, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
And so the other impact that you're talking about is the audience. I got a message today on LinkedIn from a young girl in Pakistan who follows my stuff. On LinkedIn, I have 3,000 followers. Not much, right? Not very many people. But this girl just sent a message being like, I'm a student in Pakistan. I love your work. It makes me really motivated to keep going. I'm going to use it as I build my career. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing it. That was amazing. It's like, man, what more could I ask for? Like as a content creator, that's it. That's the perfect thing.
Yeah.
Somebody going, what you do made an impact on me, and thank you. Fuck, that's the best, right? So, I mean, for me, that was big, and I really meant a lot to me. Even though, again, it's one person and it's only a few thousand people, but that, just to know that impact is actually happening is a great thing. And that stuff, you never know who you're affecting, so you just keep doing it. It'll get as big as it needs to get. You don't have to worry so much, and just keep putting the stuff out there. And man, you're gonna be in places you never thought you would.
Thank you so much for
Yeah.
your inspiring words. Before we end this is a great, powerful end, but I feel
Mm,
like we need to touch on trust a little bit briefly, maybe for a
sure.
minute. What's the role of trust in public speaking? How do we establish trust between two individuals or an audience?
So I want to kind of delineate between trust and credibility,
Okay.
because trust and credibility, I think, are not enemies by any means, but people focus too much on credibility and not enough on trust. Credibility is this word that business people at least use by saying, well, I went to Harvard and then I worked at Google and then I worked at Microsoft and I made $7 million. That's Hormozy's big thing, is credibility.
Yeah.
So his credibility, I mean, he also does trust well, which I'll talk about in a second. But the credibility is, I did this thing, I built a $3 million business, so now I can tell you how to do it. And that does make sense. If you did it, you can tell me how to do it, or at least you can tell me how you did it, and I can believe you. And if you show me the receipts and the screenshots, that's credibility. You've done what you're telling me how to do. Okay, you have that credibility. But I think, at least in the business world, people focus too much on credibility. They'd say, oh, I posted about this on LinkedIn today. They say, oh, I went to this school, or I did that, or I made this much money, or I accomplished this, or these are my resume points. And that's okay, and that's necessary a little bit. But what builds trust, which is much more important, is being an emotionally honest and vulnerable person, and not pretending that you don't have emotions, that you don't struggle, that you have it all figured out, that that is way worse, in my opinion, in public speaking than not having credibility. Because if you have trust to say, I don't know, this is what I think, this is my thing, this is what if you're not pretending you know more than you do, if you're not pretending that to have done things that you haven't done, then you're actually building real human trust until somebody says, okay, even if that person doesn't know the answer, I trust that they're going to be honest with me. If this person, if I work with them, or if I buy something for them, if I invest in them, or if I decide to become their friend, I'll get honesty and I'll get transparency and I'll get a real human who has emotions and cares about me as much as they do about themselves, or at least, that's the trust piece. So what instead of listing off your resume, I went to this school, I did that, talk about your perspective. Talk about a story that tells us why you emotionally care about this topic, and be real about it. Don't use it as an emotional tactic, and really think about when you're telling that story. I asked you to go back to the moment when you were struggling with your binge eating. You felt that you felt those emotions come back up again. Am I right?
Yep.
And I could feel that when you were speaking about it, and that affected me. That built trust with you, because you were honest, you were real, you were raw, you were vulnerable. And I went, this guy's letting me into his life. And that means something to me. And that means something to an audience. If you share something, not to hook them in, but because you're like, this is me, this is real. And I think if I say it, it could help somebody. If I say it, it could help you. It's not going to make you give me money. I'm not saying it for that. I'm saying it because it's real, and because by sharing things about yourself that you maybe otherwise, you may parts of yourself that you don't like, or parts of yourself that aren't cool. You see these posts on LinkedIn a lot where somebody goes, I struggle with a lot of things. I work too hard. I'm always obsessed with work. That's my struggle. And you're like, oh, fuck off. This isn't a struggle. This is you trying to pretend that you have a weakness, which is actually just a strength. This is bullshit. It's not real. And, when I see that, I immediately don't follow that person. I don't want to hear anything more from them, because I don't believe them. I just go, I don't believe you. Sorry. I don't care. When I see someone actually admit something real about themselves, I can feel it. I think maybe, but when I feel it, when I feel somebody's being real with me, I instantly feel a connection with them, and I feel a trust. Now, of course, that trust could be abused. That trust could be misguided. But I always say, if you can share vulnerably, you create trust. And don't spend so much time bragging. Spend more time sharing.
Right. Just like a newspaper.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is it. I feel like this is 3 core strategies, to sum it up, of public speaking: understand, care, and trust. And then we talked about like what goes on inside understanding, which is like from having simpler words to switching up your tone, connecting it with your stories. And then we obviously moved on to care, and then the last bit is trust, which is being vulnerable. I'm messing up so many times today.
No, it's all right. But also, just to touch on the care part as well, it's that problem, solution, prize, story structure.
Yes,
if you can think about that, that really can make people care, because it helps them understand why they're listening in the first place.
Awesome. Any last minute advice for people on my show, or any last bit of advice from your personal life that you want to share before we end our conversation here?
Yes. Think about how you can, in your life, just peel away more and more layers of bullshit. The more you can think about, do I really mean what I'm saying right now, or am I just saying this because I want this person to like me?
Right.
Or did that actually happen that exact way, or am I making this a better story? And it didn't really happen like that. Do I actually like this person's work who asked me to review it, or do I actually have some maybe constructive criticism I can give them? The more in my life, have made an effort to peel away the bullshit, the better results I've found. And even when people have reacted negatively to it because they feel offended or they feel hurt or whatever, I at least have felt better about myself for living up to my value of honesty. And I always try to be gentle if I can give feedback gently while still being giving constructive criticism. But the more I think about just peeling away layers of bullshit, the better I feel like I am as a communicator, as a coach, as a husband, father, friend. I just think I have more to offer when I do that. So I think if you're a young person, you're watching this, try to be just more honest with yourself and with others. That doesn't mean mean. That doesn't mean cruel. That doesn't mean judgmental. It just means like, how are you really feeling right now? Can you express that? Do you agree with something that somebody said? Can you express that politely and respectfully? If you don't, just, what do you want to say? Maybe make the joke that you're thinking of making and you're scared to make. If somebody doesn't like it, well, that's okay. You've been yourself. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Well, this was a great conversation. You gave us a
Yeah.
lot of details about the strategies that people and me myself need to use when we are creating content or public speaking. So I greatly appreciate your time and effort today. We chatted a lot, and maybe we'll have you back on for discussing different things in terms of public speaking and maybe your self-improvement journey. So thank you for coming on
Would
the
love
show,
to.
Will. I really appreciate your time. And
Thanks for having me.
I'll catch everyone in the next video or a podcast. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. I enjoyed learning about the 3 strategies that Will laid out. First, we talked about understand, and then care, and then trust. And those 3 strategies are essential for your public speaking, whether you're a college student or a corporate professional. I hope this podcast was valuable to you. And if you found it helpful, please share it to your friends, coworkers, and family members. Additionally, hit the like button if you like this podcast. And most importantly, to support this channel and my podcast, The Patel Perspective, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because self-improvement podcasts, health and science podcasts will be out regularly. Thank you for watching again. I hope to catch you in the next science-based video or a podcast.